Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Uninterrupted. I'm your host, Chris Hammons, and with me today, as always, is our COO, Jon Fausz. Jon, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
All right. As always, we're going to get right into it. So, we've talked on previous episodes about why a business leader should be more involved with their IT, more involved with their cybersecurity. But it still feels like some of them choose to almost ignore the risk with cybersecurity. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that continues to happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners just don't know how it's going to really affect their business. I don't think there's several different factors that go into it. I think one, they don't realize how much it's going to affect their business. They really don't realize how much it happens. They think that they're more secure than they really are. But when we look at cybercrime and we look at cyber attacks, I kind of like to think of it as you're not too small to get hacked, you're too small to make the news.
Right.
And so what goes on with that is that people don't realize how often that this is happening and how big of a massive disruption it is for their other businesses that look just like them. And they're having a hard time putting themselves in the shoes of somebody else that has gone through, partially because they just don't even know. I kind of like to equate it to cancer diagnosis 20 plus years ago, when everybody would be like, oh, did you hear so-and-so got cancer? Like they did something wrong. And now that people are talking about it more, they're saying, oh, did you hear Bob got cancer? Oh, yeah, he got screened for it. He got checked out really early, and they were able to take care of it before it really materially affected his life. That's where we are with cybersecurity right now, is people are getting cancer of their company, which is hacking. Hacking's happening, but everybody's so ashamed to talk about it that they're whispering about it if they're talking about it at all. They're not telling anybody else about it. And you hear about the large organizations getting hacked, and they protected themselves because they didn't want to make the news. But you know, these little smaller organizations where they're running is the world to these business owners and the people that work there. They don't realize how vulnerable they really are to hacking. They don't realize how much of a disruption it's really going to be. They don't realize how easy it's happening, how much it's happening all over the place, until something does happen. And they understand intimately what they didn't understand before. And so how do we get the business leaders to understand that this has a likelihood of happening, and it's going to really suck if you go through this, if you weren't prepared for it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, a lot of business leaders I talk to look at it as just a cost, not necessarily a driver that's going to help their business. Technology, they're just looking at it as, hey, this is what I'm going to have to pay for this, and I just have to have this kind of a thing. When the business leader's looking at it like that, what advice would you maybe give them?
Well, I think they need to have a fundamental reshift of why they invested in technology in the first place. And so I see this a lot of times of that technology, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to allow you to do the mission of your company easier. So a lot of places, the largest cost for their organization is their employees. So it should allow your employees to be more efficient, to do their jobs easier, whether that be through AI, whether that be just through the regular use of computers. I mean, I think we're so used to computers existing in our day-to-day lives that we kind of don't see them anymore. They're a little bit invisible. So people don't realize what does the world look like if they're gone. And when you go through a cyber attack, then all of a sudden you really are aware of, this isn't an application I can't use. This computer doesn't exist anymore. I can't open up any applications, can't connect to the internet, can't do anything. It's a dead paperweight at that point. And then when you're really actually doing things on pencil and paper and seeing what that looks like, then it becomes really involved in what does IT do for you, and it's not just a cost. IT, technology, cybersecurity, it should never only be a cost. Now, cybersecurity kind of is to a little bit because you're buying insurance, saying that an event shouldn't happen. Right? But when you invest in IT and you invest in technology, what you're really doing is you're investing in profitability. You're saying, hey, I'm going to put in this time, I'm going to put in this cost effort here in order to save time here, to speed up my operations, to lower a cost somewhere else so that I can be more profitable in the end. And so a lot of companies, when they really do invest in cybersecurity and they invest in technology, they realize that they're making an investment in their company's profitability and their company's future. And so they know how technology functions in their business more, and they're able to get more out of it. So when I see a lot of companies say, hey, this is a cost, and I don't want to go through this, and blah, blah, blah. Like when I talked to a dentist office who was paperless, you know, they're saving time. They're having the ability to pull up records faster. They're having the ability to process x-rays faster. Whenever I had an issue with my ankle recently that I had to go get taken care of, I sprained it and needed surgery to repair that. The data that makes it easier, like the x-rays showed up on the screen as soon as they were taken. they used to have to process that sort of thing.
Right.
The amount of time, the speed at which medical diagnoses can happen now is greatly increased because of technology. So how do you do that in your business? How do you think about that in your business? It involves having a kind of a fundamental shift in the way that you consider technology, and a lot of business owners don't think that. And then on top of that, of all these things that I'm using technology for in order to allow my business to function, can a hacker come and take those offline? That's where cybersecurity comes in. Can a hacker steal my sensitive data and have one of the three bad things happen, which is stealing the financials or getting direct access to or getting in the middle of a financial transaction, stealing sensitive data and blackmailing you for it, or going through and shutting down your operations so you consider paying a ransom. Realize that those possibilities exist, and so you rely on technology to increase your profitability. The hackers know this, so they attack that technology in order to take that profitability away, so then you consider paying them money in order to get access to it again. So this is why business leadership has to be involved in these sorts of things.
That makes total sense. And one of the big ones, a reason I see business leaders ignore cybersecurity risk is just for the simple fact is, I hear this way more than I should, and they're way too confident when they tell me this. It hasn't happened to me yet, so why should I start to care now?
Yeah, and it hasn't. So it hasn't happened to me yet. I would hedge that with they don't even say yet most of the time. Like it hasn't. I've been in business for 30 years and it hasn't happened to me. Why should I care now? And it's because, well, the risks keep getting higher and higher every year. So business email compromise at the beginning of 2024, we were seeing it like once a quarter, and it's weekly now. So it's just people are clicking, people are doing stuff. The initial access is happening to the hackers, and as these companies make it harder, as the large organizations make it harder to hack them, the threat actors didn't go, well, you know what, my livelihood's over. I guess I'm going to throw up my hands and quit now. No, right. They evolved, they changed, they went and figured out ways to attack people where they are, and they've changed their methods. And so your cybersecurity has to be constantly evolving, and then it shows just a bigger gap in the people that aren't doing enough.
Yeah.
Because as the methods change, and as they're not doing the things where we'd be easy to spot them as it was before, as those methods change, then you need to be keeping up with that, because if you've not done anything, if you've not done anything really for your cybersecurity since pre-COVID, you are a hacker's dream. Yeah. Like they will, once they get access and that spotlight is now put on you, they're going to make your life really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think any part of it as why a business leader might ignore some of these risks too is, do you just think it's because it's out of their wheelhouse? Maybe it's too confusing, too overwhelming them. But in reality, they don't need to be a cybersecurity expert, right?
Yeah. They don't need to be a cybersecurity expert. They just need to not be an easy target is kind of the thing there. They need to have a high-level understanding of what's going on, because they can't really make a business decision from there. For too long, companies like ours, we made technology the realm of the nerds, self included. It was difficult to understand, and so the business leaders were able to say, I want this to happen, and we would go, okay, we can do that. Here's how much money it's going to cost. Is it within your budget and time frame and all those items? Then we can make that happen for you. And so we allowed ourselves to put that on our shoulders, so we didn't have to have the hard conversations and explain to people how it worked. So you might not want to know. Cybersecurity is not like that, though. You have to have some kind of understanding of if at least not how it's being protected, what's being protected, and what your risks are aside from there. So it's really, really hard to say now, just let somebody else take care of it.
Absolutely. And then that was kind of going to be my next thing. The only other thing I could think of why they just want to ignore these flat out is because they don't know who's responsible for that risk. And I know we've talked about this in some other episodes, but if they don't know who's responsible or who needs to be doing what, I can see why maybe they push that off and they just kind of ignore the risk altogether.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand, right? So
It
really there's this whole shared language that has to happen in order to even have a base cybersecurity conversation. And so this is one of the reasons why we're so huge on education here, is because there's a shared vocabulary that when we talk about risk and everything like that, there's an understanding that needs to happen in order for the business leader to even have the conversation that we're trying to have with them. And if they don't have the shared language or the shared understanding of why it should matter, then we're talking past each other all the time and we're not on the same page. And so I want people to be as knowledgeable about this as they need to be in order to make the decision. Right. Past that, I want people to be as knowledgeable after they get to that level. Do you want to know more? I'll tell you more. It's not a secret. It's not a secret of how of how this is done. It's the hard work of actually doing it. That's the
100%.
that's the hard part. You have to know what you need to know. You can figure that out. It's the actual execution and doing is the thing.
Gotcha. Now, I'm just kind of trying to just think as much as I can as to why someone, another business leader would choose to kind of maybe ignore some of these risks. And you already mentioned it. It's not necessarily that they don't care, that maybe they don't see it. Do you think humans are kind of just wired to underestimate risk at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think this. I've talked about this to some people privately and things like that, is bad things happen. They do. It's just part of life. Part of life is involved in running through the world and dealing with risk. I mean, you could get in a car accident any day, anytime you're in a car, you get in a car accident. Plane crashes are very rare, but they still happen. You could fall down the stairs. You could do all these sorts of things. You can't live your life 100% not having risk. You can't get rid of all risk. And so you just want to try to eliminate unnecessary risks. But realistically, if we lived in an environment mentally where we thought the bad thing was going to happen to us all the time, we would never leave the house. Right? Like, what is the use of doing so?
Right.
Because we are wired to say, okay, I need to wall this traumatic event away in order to continue to live my life. But that also causes us to completely misjudge what an acceptable risk is just because it's not in front of us all the time. And we did that with cancer back in the day too, where it was like, there was ways to mitigate this risk of cancer if you went and got the preemptive screenings that you needed to have. Then you could make it so you weren't going to prevent getting cancer, but you could make it a lot less damaging to you if you did. We're likely not going to prevent cybercrime completely, but we can make it a lot less damaging if you get it, if you've done the proper things to prepare yourself and to lessen that risk such you end up having it. But that takes some understanding to understand that it's out there. It could happen to you. It will likely to happen to you if you don't do anything.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, everybody knows somebody who's been affected by cybercrime.
Yes.
Directly. Whether they know it or not, it's so prevalent. And so until we start having the open conversation about it, then people are gonna be able to wall it off and say, well, okay, this doesn't happen to me, or I'm gonna roll the dice, not even having any idea what rolling the dice is.
Right.
And you do this, right, guys? Like, you would never play Russian roulette. Like, if you were to come across somebody that was holding up a gun to their head and spinning that barrel, you would say that is a non-stable person and I should stay away from them.
100%.
Right? Because you understand what the risk is if that goes wrong. It's not worth the reward of playing the game. Not doing anything to prevent cybercrime and cyber theft, not doing anything for cybersecurity is like playing Russian roulette with your business. When I look at you, I'm like, you're not a stable person. Why aren't you realizing what's out here and what you're actually doing and how bad it's going to be if you go through this?
Gotcha. Okay. So if a business leader is starting to understand that risk, I guess the only other thing I could think of why they wouldn't do something about it is maybe the priorities. Are they prioritizing it with something else that they have going on currently? But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right. So I'll give you an example. This is a simple example. There's one company that we work with now who we've been talking to for a year, and the timing was never right. They're like, oh, we don't have time to look at this right now. We don't have time to look at this right now. 7-user company, technology wasn't the core thing of what they did. Right. 7-computer user company, they had about 15 more employees that are out in the field doing things that don't involve technology, but their computers are what involved that to happen. They had a hacker come through and encrypt everything, all the PCs, server, everything.
Backups,
Backups, everything.
Backups,
they had to restore to 18-month-old data, so they lost everything. Restored old data. They were down for days in order to get them back up. We got their server back up and running, but due to a very old backup that they happened to find. Change out the hard drives of all the PCs and reformat computers and rebuild it from scratch and try to reload data that wasn't on them and rebuild what the applications were. I had somebody down there every day for 3 weeks just to get them back up in the limp mode of where they were. And so when we look at that, everything that they had planned on doing, everything that the technology where now the timing wasn't right, everything that they were doing that caused the timing not to be right suddenly got thrown out of the window and all got backburnered in order to just get them back up in the limp mode. And I like to think of it as 2 timelines exist now. There's a timeline of what would have happened with your company before the cyber event and the trajectory that they're on, and now that's completely shifted over here, and now they're on a different timeline because they had to waste all that time and money and resources and effort and everything where they wouldn't have never had to go through that if they had just protected it.
Gotcha. So when you're prioritizing things at your business, think about it this way. A cyber event can come and just shut down your business, stop your business altogether. So when you're really thinking about prioritizing and what needs to go first, really consider how great of a risk with cybersecurity really is.
Yeah, and everything that you thought was going to happen, like I said before, all the stuff that they had prioritized didn't matter at that point, because now everything's out the window, because now they just need to get back up and running again. If you had some grand initiative that you were going to do, and say you had $30,000 to do this initiative, did you now spend that $30,000 just to get back up in limp mode?
Yeah.
Of what you were
Really
before? So
point.
all that's gone. So whatever you were going to spend that on is gone. I had another company who called us after a cyber attack. They estimated it took them, they spent $500,000 to get back up and running, and it took 9 months for them to get fully operational again. I mean, I'm kind of crass about this, but I kind of talk about, well, okay, go to the bank and take out $500,000 and put it in a pyramid in your parking lot and then light it on fire. And that will provide you a better benefit than what they went through, because at least you'll get some warmth out of it.
That's a good way to put it.
But I mean, whatever they were wanting to do, whatever they thought they were going to do, whatever their priorities were before that, whatever their trajectory of their company was before that, got completely derailed for that time frame as they went through a preventable cyber attack. Now, I'm not saying an endpoint wouldn't have been taken over.
Right.
But it would have been, hey, that employee had a couple of hours of PTO as somebody reformatted their computer and got the threat actor out, versus the entire company being down for days and then having a limited functionality for 9 months, plus all the other money that they spent on remediation and everything like that.
So to wrap this up, I mean, it's absolutely crucial that your business leaders are involved with your IT and your cybersecurity decision making. And we put, understanding your risk and understanding your business and where the data flows and how everything is set up through your technology is one of the core, honestly, one of the most important things you could do in 2026, correct?
Yeah, and I know I'm biased in saying this, but really, I can't think of much else that touches more of these businesses than their technology. I can't think of much else that allows these companies to be able to function other than their technology. And I think there needs to be a fundamental shift in the way that people think about it.
Right.
And we have a lot of excitement about AI. I'll use that as the big term that's out there. We have a ton of excitement about people talking about AI and to increase efficiencies and do all those sorts of things, which is great. I love it. If a cyber attack comes and shuts down your operations, you're not going to care about AI anymore. You're just going to wonder, how do I get my business back up and functioning the way it was?
Absolutely.
And so make sure that if you're doing these initiatives and you're excited about these things that can save your company money, that's the reason you have technology in the first place. And so think about protecting what you already have, as well as pursuing these other initiatives, because technology, if harnessed correctly, can really, really boost your company. It can make you much more profitable. It can really make you some significant money and allow you to differentiate yourself from your competitors. But you've got to be thinking about it in the right way. How am I doing this to also make me better, but how am I keeping it secure on the back end? Because the hackers know it too, and they're gonna try to exploit it if they can.
All right, I do appreciate it, John. A lot of great information. Stay tuned. Follow us and check out our other episodes. And as always, give us a call if you have any questions, see something suspicious, or just need some advice. Reach out to us. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Uninterrupted, a podcast from Forbes Cybersecurity. We hope you walked away with practical insights to protect your business and stay ahead of the latest cyber threats. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your colleagues. For more tips, resources, and cybersecurity updates, visit Forbes.com, that's 4bis.com, and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. We'll be back soon with another episode, so stay vigilant and stay uninterrupted.